Some stories do not begin with light. They begin with a silence so heavy it feels like drowning. A silent voice opens not with hope, but with regret. A quiet echo of mistakes that refuse to fade, lingering in the spaces between people, in the words never said, and in the ones that should never have been spoken. It is the story of two souls standing on opposite sides of pain, one who inflicted it and one who endured it. Yet both are bound by the same invisible thread, the aching desire to be understood. In a world filled with noise, laughter, and careless voices, this film dares to ask a fragile, trembling question. What happens to those who cannot be heard, and to those who no longer believe they deserve to be? A silent voice is a quiet, unflinching exploration of what it means to hurt someone, to live without truth, and to still search for a way back to humanity. Rather than repressing a clear moral narrative of good and bad, the film dissolves that boundary, showing how ordinary people, children even, can become instruments of cruelty without fully understanding the weight of their actions. At the beginning, Shoya is introduced as the one who bullies Shoko, but the film carefully reveals that his behavior does not exist in isolation. His classmates laugh, encourage, or remain silent, while the teacher fails to intervene meaningfully. For example, when Shoko's hearing aids are repeatedly destroyed, it is not treated as a serious violation by the authority figure in the room. This moment is crucial. It shows how systems meant to protect can instead enable harm through indifference. One of the most powerful lessons the film offers is that our actions, especially in moments of carelessness, can leave permanent marks on others. What begins as childish teasing in Shoya's case gradually becomes something far more damaging. The film reminds us that harm does not always come from intentional cruelty. It can come from ignorance, from following the crowd, or from failing to consider how deeply someone else might be affected. Through Shoko's suffering, we see that pain is not always visible, and that what seems small to one person can be life-altering to another. Later, when the situation escalates and consequences arise, the same classmates shift the blame entirely on Shoya, isolating him as the sole perpetrator. This reversal exposes a painful truth. People often participate in cruelty collectively, but abandon responsibility individually. The story is not excusing Shoya, it is expanding the scope of accountability. As the story progresses, Shoya's guilt becomes the emotional core of the narrative. His suffering is not portrayed as redemption, but as a prolonged psychological punishment. Years after the events, he is unable to look at others in the eye, avoid social interaction, and plans to end his life. One of the most striking visual symbols used to represent his internal state is the X marks covering people's faces. These marks appear whenever he feels disconnected or overwhelmed, symbolizing his belief that he is unworthy of connection. For instance, when someone tries to speak to him, he often can't process the presence fully. The X acts as a barrier between him and the world. As the story progresses and he slowly begins to reconnect, the X's fall away. This visual progression reflects not forgiveness from others, but a slow and painful shift in how he sees himself. The beginning of self-forgiveness, the most difficult kind. The film teaches us that people are not fixed in the worst things they have done. Shoya's journey shows that guilt, while painful, can also become a starting point for growth if it is faced honestly. Change does not erase the past, nor does it guarantee forgiveness. Instead, it requires humility, accountability, and the willingness to live differently moving forward. The lesson is not that redemption is easy, but that it is possible, and that choosing to become better even when it feels undeserved is an act of courage. Shoko, on the other hand, represents a different but equally devastating psychological response to trauma. Rather than expressing anger or resentment, she internalizes blame. She apologizes constantly, even in moments where she is clearly the one being hurt. Her constant apologies are heartbreaking symbols of her inner world. This is not kindness. It is a learned survival mechanism. Her smile, often soft and apologetic, becomes a mask hiding deep pain. For example, when conflicts arise between Shoya and the others later in the film, Shoko often takes responsibility, believing that her presence is the cause of tension, that her existence is a burden, and that her presence causes suffering and inconveniences to others. Her attempts to connect, such as offering her notebook for communication or trying to speak aloud despite difficulty, are filled with vulnerability, yet often meet with misunderstanding. Her tragedy lies in this contradiction. She longs to be understood, yet believes she does not deserve to be. The film's exploration of communication goes far beyond Shoko's deafness. In fact, one of the most powerful ideas is that everyone in the story struggles to communicate authentically. Words are often inadequate, misleading, or even harmful. Words are spoken, but they often fail to convey truth. Silence in this sense becomes symbolic, not just of disability, but of emotional isolation. The title itself reflects this duality. A silent voice is not the absence of sound, but the presence of feeling that cannot be easily expressed. The film gently argues that true communication requires vulnerability, patience, and empathy, not just speech. Shoya cannot properly express his remorse when he first reunites with Shoko. His apologies feel clumsy and insufficient. At one point, Shoko tries to confess her feelings to him. Her speech impairment leads to a misunderstanding, and Shoya misinterprets her words entirely. This moment is both painful and symbolic. Even when someone gathers the courage to be vulnerable, communication can still fail. The film suggests that true understanding requires more than language. It requires patience, empathy, and the willingness to truly listen. Another deeply moving lesson is about the importance of understanding and empathy in communication. The film shows that true connection goes beyond words. Shoko's deafness highlights a broader truth. Many people feel unheard, even when they can speak. Misunderstandings, assumptions, and emotional barriers often prevent us from truly seeing one another. The story encourages us to slow down, to listen, not just to what is being said, but to what is being felt. It reminds us that empathy is not about fixing others, but about meeting them where they are, with patience and sincerity. Another recurring theme is the desire to disappear, which is expressed through both characters in different ways. Shoya initially plans his suicide as a way to balance the scales, believing that his death might compensate for the pain he caused. He even goes as far as organizing his belongings and repaying debts, treating his life as something that must be settled before being erased. Shoko too reaches a breaking point, but her motivation is different. She believes that removing herself will make life easier for others around her. This is illustrated in the devastating scene on the balcony, where her quiet smile hides a decision rooted in self-erasure. These moments are not dramatized for shock. They are portrayed with heavy stillness, emphasizing that the desire to die often comes not from wanting death, but from wanting relief from emotional suffering. The desire to disappear is also symbolized through water and height. Bridges, rivers, and balconies appear repeatedly, representing the fragile boundary between life and death. Water in particular carries dual meaning. It is both cleansing and consuming. It reflects the character's emotional states, overwhelming, suffocating, yet also capable of renewal. These visual motifs reinforce the idea that their struggle is not just external, but deeply internal, a battle between staying and vanishing. Both Shoko and Shoya reach a point where they want to disappear, believing that isolation is the answer. But the story gently challenges this idea, showing that despite the darkness, the characters ultimately move toward a fragile form of hope, not through grand redemption, but through connection, proving that no matter how imperfect, connection is what allows people to move forward. One of the most significant turning points occurs when Shoya asks Shoko for help. This moment is subtle yet profound. It marks the first time he does not position himself solely as someone who must atone, but as someone who is also struggling in need of support. It challenges the idea that he must suffer alone to make things right. Similarly, Shoko's journey involves slowly that she is not inherently a burden, that her existence does not need to be justified through constant apology. The film suggests that vulnerability is not weakness, but the first step towards healing. To reach out, to be seen, to admit that you are struggling, these are acts of quiet strength. Friendship in this story is fragile, complicated, and often shaped by past wounds. For Shoya, friendship begins as something he believes he no longer deserves. When he first tries to reconnect with others, especially Shoko, his attempts are awkward and uncertain, as if he is learning how to be human again. Characters like Nagatsuka, who accepts Shoya without knowing his past, show how powerful even a single genuine connection can be. That friendship becomes a turning point. It challenges Shoya's belief that he is unworthy of kindness. At the same time, the film does not idealize friendships. It exposes jealousy, insecurity, and dishonesty within the group. Conflicts arise, harsh truths are spoken, and not everyone is ready to grow at the same pace. Through this, the film suggests that friendship is not all about perfection, but about navigating misunderstandings and choosing again and again to stay. The impact of friendship ultimately lies in its ability to pull people back from the edge of isolation. Both Shoya and Shoko carry the desire to disappear, yet it is their connection and the presence of others that anchors them to life. Even imperfect friendships create moments of laughter, shared experiences, and emotional support that slowly begins to heal what once felt irreparable. When Shoya learns to open himself to others, and when Shoko begins to feel even slightly accepted, we see how connection reshapes their inner worlds. Friendship in this sense becomes more than companionship. It becomes a quiet form of salvation. It does not erase their pain, but it gives them a reason to endure it, and more importantly, a reason to keep living despite it. The final scene encapsulates the film's emotional resolution. Shoya walks through the crowd surrounded by the quiet rhythm of ordinary life, the shuffle of footsteps, the murmur of voices, the presence of people he once could not face. For so long, every face had been covered, marked with silent X's that shielded him from connection, from judgment, from the unbearable weight of being seen. It was easier to live in a world where no one truly existed, where he could disappear without resistance. But now, something begins to shift. One by one, the X's fall. Not all at once, not dramatically, just gently, almost hesitantly, as if the world itself is giving him permission to look again. Faces emerge, eyes meet his. The noise he once feared returns, not as chaos, but as life. And for the first time, he does not turn away. He listens, he feels, he exists among others. And then, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it, the years of silence, the loneliness, the guilt, the fragile beauty of being allowed back into the world, Shoya breaks down. Tears fall, not from despair, but from something far more complex, something closer to release. Because nothing has been erased. The past is still there, the pain is still real, but so is this moment. A moment where he no longer hides behind shame, where he no longer denies himself connection, where he allows himself, finally, to belong. It is not a perfect ending. It is not a complete healing. It is something quieter, something more honest. He is no longer hiding from the world, and he is no longer denying himself the right to be part of it. It is the beginning of a life where he chooses to face the world and be seen by it. And so, a silent voice does not end with certainty. It ends with something far more fragile, a kind of hope, not the loud, triumphant kind, but a quiet, trembling hope that lives in small moments, and a glance that is finally returned, and a voice that dares to speak, and a heart that chooses, despite everything, to keep going. It reminds us that life does not ask us to be perfect. It does not demand that we erase our past or undo the pain we have caused or carried. Instead, it asks something much more difficult: to face it, to live with it, and to still reach out. Because in the end, healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about learning to accept the person you are and allowing yourself to be seen even when it's terrifying. A silent voice leaves us with a gentle truth, that even in a world filled with noise, misunderstanding, and regret, connection is still possible. And sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is not to speak louder, but to listen more deeply to others, and to the quiet voice within themselves that whispers, "You are still allowed to be here." Because even the softest voice, once heard and held with care, can echo louder than any silence that once tried to bury it. And in the quiet spaces where pain once lived, something softer begins to rise, fragile, enduring, and finally heard: a silent voice.